everyone. So we had a question a while back from one of our mods, Thanagor, about house meeting, because Jess and I had mentioned, hey, we've got to do house meeting after this stream. And the question was, well, what is that? What do you mean? So we all deal with a lot of different stuff in my house. ADHD, autism, ADHD, migraines. I am repeating a few of these things. PMDD. There is a whole slew of different things that we all deal with. Plus, we're all adults that have different responsibilities within that and are still trying to maintain a house together. Okay? And so it was really rough at first because there was just so much going on and trying to organize. There wasn't really a plan, or there was a plan, but then it only took care of that moment, So eventually, one of the things that I came up with doing with the help of my therapist was house meeting. And this would be a time to basically check in, see what people's schedules are, organize kind of chore stuff, maybe bring up anything that we needed to work on, or hey, you forgot to do this thing, kind of need you to do the thing. So I guess, is there anything you've got for kind of house meeting or somewhere in there?
Yeah. So one of the things that I often talk to parents about when we're discussing, how to do, how to work with kids, how to get kids more on board with things, is I kind of talk about it from the perspective of being a team. The reason I like house meetings is that by bringing everybody on board, what you can essentially do is you can essentially get everyone on the same page because the kids feel like they have a say in things. I find that the top-down model, especially as kids get older, doesn't really work very well. When they're little kids, sure, because that's just how little kids work. But as they get older, what I like to do is kind of actually rationally describe some of the things going on. One of the things I've offered to parents sometimes during house meetings is sit down with the kids and I want you to list out all of the things that are related to labor in the household. What does the labor division actually look like?
We've done that at various points, yeah.
And so it's okay, well, this person works. Dad goes to the the shop every day. The mom goes to, her job. And what you essentially start to recognize, to realize, is that there's X amount of labor and people are doing all of this other stuff, right? The kids are going to school, they have extracurriculars, the parents are doing their work plus their extracurriculars. Here's the remaining labor. How do you distribute that? And when you actually spell that out for kids, there's a lot of tendency to sort of get on board because it feels like they're part of something. They have a say and they're being offered to do something rather than either being, one, just demanded to do it, or two, that backhanded way of asking, which is a demand, which is could you do this for me? Which in reality is do the fucking thing. In our house meetings, what I try to do is somewhat of a top-down approach in regards to keeping us on track, because I like to get through them quickly. But otherwise, for me, the house meeting is really simple. Basically, just throughout the week, you write down any of the concerns you have, be it a behavior, someone skipped a chore, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you sit down and you go through them piece by piece. And the goal here is to go through them at a relatively decent clip. You're not trying to stay on them for a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I think the other big part in there is with one meeting and you only have so much time, you really have to pare down what's important and what isn't. And I think this works especially well when you've got neurodiverse kids, because if you're trying to work on a skill or you're trying to work on a behavior or something like that, no, you need to be able to focus on that thing, give them the space to learn that individual thing before you keep moving on. And so when you're shit, house meeting only has so much time, I've only got so much time to work on this, you really got to pare down to what's important.
It's true.
And there's also plenty of time in there, if you've got a partner or other adults with you to kind of compare notes, see what you guys are noticing, see what your approach is going to be. That way there's kind of a unified front. like I said, and I think it's important too because in discussing this stuff with them, they get a lot of choices in how to deal with things, right? When is a good time for them to do the chores? All right, if you're like, shit, do it at like 3:30, but that's like the time where they just got home from school and they're tired and they're just out of it, that might not be a good chore time for them. But with this kind of structure, you can actually like get feedback, actually work with them to figure out, what is going to work, for them, what's going to kind of get them into a good place to start kind of managing things.
Yeah. So to answer some of the questions in chat, so Hyrulean Hellhound said, "We've tried doing these in my house, 2 parents, 3 adult siblings, and 1 person was not on board at all, which complicates the matter." So the thing is then you work with incentives. If they're not really on board at all, then that means there's certain bonuses and incentives they don't get. Like, I know that sounds like a jerk move, but also fuck them.
No, you do kind of have to strong arm some of this stuff sometimes.
Yep.
And, when you're in a housemate situation you've signed a lease on with people, the ending consequence will be that you're not going to probably want to live with this person, when that lease comes up. That is how that will end. In a house, family stuff, your situation is a bit different, but if you can kind of stress like, hey, you know what, let's stress the positive things, right? I really like doing this stuff. If we get all this stuff done, you know what, this will leave a lot of extra time for us to have fun and do cool things, right? Like if we're not stressing over the weekend because we didn't get XYZ done.
Yeah.
This, I think that's kind of more the framing, is that anytime we can kind of use a positive framing, we try to.
Yeah, so Tiamat, you said even an attentive or thoughtful child would have difficulty understanding how much work actually is for quite a while. Yeah, so the thing is generally that works best with adolescents. With little kids, I tend to find that, like, using soft shoulds is better. So, like, with little kids, it's like, this is what's expected of us. Like, mommy and daddy are supposed to clean up their room. You need to clean up your room. Like, these soft kind of shoulds can be helpful because you kind of establish what is, like, the parameters of what you want done. Well, but when you're talking about, like, overall labor distribution, no, you need kids that are in their adolescence to really understand that one.
Yeah, house meetings are definitely going to be something that you've got to tailor to the age group that you're working with and the abilities of the people in the moment. Like, I think our big thing, too, is, like, no, me during PMDD does not have the same abilities during me without PMDD. Yeah. My ability to comprehend, to remember, to keep track, to write, even just basic writing is hindered, okay? And so we do have to take those things into consideration. A lot of times the things that I do for house meeting is taking notes. And a lot of times, even after the meeting, the new thing that I've started doing is making a 3x5 card for a kid of the things that they need to get done. A lot of times they'll remember the concepts or they'll remember parts of it. But when we're going in a fast meeting like that, it may be hard to pick out like the 3 things that they were supposed to do for tomorrow. Okay. So making accommodations. So where?
Okay. So like I think Tiamat's going off on a different tangent. So the idea is, well, I'm trying to get to the idea that seems like a lot of parents won't even try that kind of communication. Yeah, and a lot of people shouldn't be parents. Like, I'll be honest, it was my argument is that I never should have been. I was an awful parent. I learned better as time went on. Funny enough, did a lot better after my wife passed. And then I got rid of a particular girlfriend. But the issue is that, like, we don't let people drive a 2,000-pound vehicle without a license. We let people create sentient life. Just happen fucking stance. And I'm not saying that's not how it should be, but in some ways, like, I think that parents have to try harder and try to be better. I think there should be a basis of, like, understanding. I don't think authoritarian top-down systems work for very long. I think at some point you have to find a way to work with and be willing to be with your kid. And if you can't even sit down and do a house meeting because you're just rather yell and be authoritarian, spoiler alert, what happens when that kid does something off the fucking rails, such as comes out as gay, or is trans, or is a white girl dating a black guy? Like, there's a billion and one things that are going to get thrown at you that violate all your expectations, and authoritarianism has no way to handle it except for apply more force. And that's how your kid doesn't talk to you for 20 years.
I can't say that authoritarianism really teaches your kids life skills.
Just teaches them how to be afraid and good at lying. Remember, we covered that with attachment parenting.
We absolutely did. So like, I think the big things are, be consistent. I think another big thing is have a house document, have house rules, right? Have everybody agree to them. There are going to be times where you have to, no, we have to have this rule. Floors where people walk have to be clear, otherwise people could get hurt. Not a bad rule, okay? But do you have to be kind of firm on some of that stuff sometimes? Yeah. The things you don't have to be firm on, though, don't be. Give people room. So I think the clear, consistent rules. A house document I think would be great. Honestly, even for like adults, when I see people like trying to live together,
or just a house agreement, right?
Just a house agreement.
The house agreement where you talk about like what are our values. Like instead of like just telling the kids this is what we do. What if you were to sit down and go like, so is it okay to hit people? No. Should we clean up our rooms? Yes. Like establish very clear things. And again,
so
these are more for older kids. For younger kids, you can be a little bit more top down. But again, it's one of those things where I think that we need to rethink how parenting works. We also need to rethink about what parenting means. Because in a lot of ways, like, I grew up with a parent who is not forceful at all, and I turned out to be a parent that was overly forceful, something I regret a great deal. So the question is how do you find that balance? Because it wasn't because I was overly forced or handheld or anything like that. It was just, I just was an ADHD kid that didn't really know how to be how to be a parent. Part of that comes from growing up exceedingly poor. So like there's a number of factors that go into this. Yeah.
So we talk a bit about rules, and I think one of the best things you can do is praise the good stuff and state the positive, right? So yes, you could have rules like we don't hit people, but maybe, hey, we try to talk about our feelings first. Okay? If we feel really upset, we should take a deep breath, maybe walk away. Okay? All right. Our thing, we all got to do the best we can to sort our mail. That's our house agreement. That is literally it. We just got to do the best we can, and that's it. If you focus, anytime there's a rule break, the goal is understanding, right, and some behavioral stuff. And I think the big thing that we do in our house, we're all adults here.
Vaguely.
Vaguely, thank you. Is actually just like writing reminder signs.
Huh?
That's probably the biggest one that really helps, because we found that is the thing that keeps people's memory on a task. They have to kind of have to face the thing that they did and go, okay, well, I gotta do that now. And then, usually there's some creativity, and then now there's a sign there. So every time, on repeated things that they have trouble remembering, now there's a sign. And there's signs all around the house too. Yeah. But it's something that isn't, punishment based, right? It's actually addressing hey, I got to remember to do this thing. Okay. It's actually like a life, it can be a life skill, because we also have like directions on how to get things done, for certain tasks written out. That way, without us, somebody can still go, okay, I know how to do this now.
Let me give you guys a pro tip. If you're dealing with someone who's a yeller, like full stop, let me give you a pro tip, and we'll kind of end this one here. Pro tip. What Renegade said is perfectly accurate. It's dehumanized, but it's like yelling at a dog and expecting it to trust and respect you. True. So if you have a yeller in your family, one of the things I might do is, instead of moralizing, saying that yelling is bad, what that does is tend to inoculate people, and they just tend to yell more. What I would do is point out, are they getting the results they want? Could that be because the technique they're using is flawed? Does yelling bring about the desired result? Because clearly it does not. Right? So you point this out, and you basically point out the causality of it. Is this working for you? No? Why do you think that is? Well, because they're being lazy. But wouldn't it be better then to create incentives for this person to want to do that, instead of pushing against something they don't want to do? That seems like a lot of work for you. And you can kind of frame this as a communication error, because the moralizing argument, while true, is not necessarily a good one to use to de-escalate. Make sense? So with that, I feel pretty good on this topic. How about you? Is there anything else you want to add about house meetings and house
I think
agreements.
just some of the stuff we found is put a timer on it. 20, 25 minutes at the most is all we do. Like, seriously, like after that, you just lose people.
Well, and you do specifically the things that really are like time dependent, right?
Yeah, yeah. The other suggestion too is if you've got like big emotional things going on, we suggest kind of separating that out. Just because that really gets into the weeds when you're like, I gotta organize this, and this, event, and dealing with emotional stuff at the same time is just not your friend. Take notes. Be clear, right? If you need your house rules posted, do that. Having a clear schedule. Also, routine schedules can really help. Not like in the restrictive sense, but they really do help. Yeah, I think that's about that. Like, and with house meetings, like, be open to changing, be open to shifting it, right? As your kids grow, cool. You're gonna need to shift and grow with them.
Yeah.
Okay, as people learn the skills, or as you
the
guys
tactics you used on them when they were really young aren't necessarily the tactics you want to be using when they're like older. Like they're just not gonna work. So
yeah.
Anywho, why don't we end this one here? And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also ring the bell if you want to be notified of our videos. If you want to help the channel, you can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. You also can become a patron at patreon.com/transgirltherapist. For as low as $3, you can support our channel. Thanks for watching.